So one of the things, I'll make some comments about, first of all, very happy to have this opportunity, although I just walked into this cold. One thing I will mention which is relevant for the introduction also is that I'm an advisor for MIT's OpenCourseware. Now, just to get this started, how many of you have heard about OpenCourseware? Excellent. So that's good. So for those of you who might not have, OpenCourseware was MIT's commitment to the world in 2000 to make the content of all its courses available on the web for free for educational purposes. Now, OpenCourseware, we used to go around and we used to qualify this and say that it is not an MIT education, it is a window to MIT education. But what was very interesting was that it really catalyzed the open education movement. And I remember at that time, much later in 2006, I had the good fortune of working here as an honorary advisor to India's National Knowledge Commission. And the big problem that, at least the area that I was beginning to focus on was open and distance learning. And I was interpreting open according to OpenCourseware, saying that, look, through OpenCourseware and what followed subsequently, there is enormous amounts of openly available educational content that can really make a dent in addressing the demand for educational opportunity. Now, one of the things that we heard then, and I heard even this about 10 minutes ago, is that there's incredible demand for education, especially for a country like India, which is in a gallop for development, for education in every sector. You have to train people, we have to educate people, to build infrastructure as engineers, as doctors, as nurses. And so there is a need to provide education in a scalable way, but in a scalable way vectorially, meaning there is need just not in terms of numbers, but in different kinds of educational opportunities that have to be provided. And it was very, very clear at that time that the traditional means of addressing that need, building schools every day or typically formal structures for education, were not going to be able to meet the demand in any useful way, significant way. And that the open education movement, characterized by things like MIT's OpenCourseware, could certainly become a very, very valuable asset in meeting the demand. So one of the things I like to say that because while OpenCourseware itself was very, very special and we had millions of hits from all around the world, many institutions in this country, students, wherever I used to come and give a talk, would be looking at OpenCourseware. What was really important was that around the world, people started following the model. In fact, today, we have upwards of 250 institutions who are members of that OpenCourseware consortium who are all putting out courses. And about upward of 13,000 openly available courses that are there through that consortium. Now, that was then, and the next phase, or the next incarnation, if you will, of the open education movement is what we see through the massive open online courses, or MOOCs as we call them. So MOOCs, as I see it, represent a wonderful confluence of open resources and what networks can provide. So I like to refer to this as network-enabled open education. And what MOOCs represent are the innovative potential of technology combined with the access potential of openness and bringing them together in very, very interesting ways to provide quality education at scale to meet diverse demands of educators around the world. Now, you might have heard of all this. The one that I like to talk about is edX, of course, which was MIT and Harvard University joining hands to launch this platform for massive online courses. And of course, there are others, Udacity, Coursera, etc., many others. And now in the family, edX family itself, there are multiple institutions around the world who are either contributing courses or have become part of the development environment of the edX platform. So why are MOOCs interesting? Like I said, they represent this very, very interesting intersection of technology-enabled education for innovation and scale. And why, and if you look at it, for instance, when you look at the first course that was launched through edX, which was Anant Agarwal, who was the founder of edX, Anant's first course had 150,000 people who registered for the course. Typically, we see that there is about 7% completion, people who want to get credentials, certificates, who follow through. But very, very large numbers of people sign up and enroll. And the fact that they can enroll without any gating criteria, meaning there are no restrictions on who can sign up for a course, makes it very interesting, because suddenly you see that a very, very high quality course, such as the one offered by Anant, is now available to learners around the world. But that's not all. Typically, when we think about MOOCs and scale, we are inclined to say, oh, this is no different from, let's say, a video course. We have done online education before. We have done televised courses before. We have taken a course from a classroom and made it available to thousands around the world. But MOOCs are different. One of the things that characterizes MOOCs is the fact that a lot of traditional processes are automated. So you have short video segments for lectures, and immediately following that, you will see some interactive visualization or interactive exercises for deeper exploration. Immediately following that, you'll see some testing, right? So you talk about interactive experiences. So what makes this testing at scale possible is that a lot of it is automated. So immediately following a short lecture, you're able to give a test, and based on that, you're able to guide the student, the learner, through different pathways. So this very, very short loop of presenting materials, following it up with some things that provide some greater understanding of the topic or the concept, and immediately followed by some testing, and the testing being able to be done at scale because it is automated, makes this for a very, very powerful learning experience. So it is not just about taking any educational experience and putting it out there, but really trying to think about how can you provide quality, interactive, customized educational experiences at scale. And that's what makes it a very, very potent force for providing education at scale. And, we talk in educational theory about Bloom's taxonomy. There is a learning hierarchy. What MOOCs allow you to do is bring the various phases of that learning hierarchy very close together. When we all studied, we might be introduced to the world is applauding on MOOCs. Anyway, so when we all studied, we would, learn some theory one day, and maybe, 6 months later, there'll be a test, which was the only way of giving feedback to the instructor whether we had understood the topic or not, Now, in this situation, and then there have been various other innovations to make it more interactive, to have more testing. But in the MOOC situation, what happens is, because you're able to bring that testing so much more closer to when some theory is processing, you're able to provide intervention for those who might be, who might not have grasped a concept or something in a timely fashion that you can get. Now, the second thing that is very, very interesting about MOOCs, I'm talking about characteristics of these, which make it a special learning environment. The second thing that you see about MOOCs are communities. Now, when edX was launched and Anant gave his first course, on 602X, which is the introductory circuits course, was launched by MIT, the general assumption was that there are 2 or 3 teachers, some TAs, and there'll be 150,000 students out there. So sort of a few to many experience, or a one to many experience, What really happened in MOOCs was suddenly there were all kinds of self-learning communities that had formed who were helping each other to learn. And so suddenly it was not a one-to-many experience, but a many-to-many experience. So lots of these communities were helping each other. So if somebody had a question, a doubt, they would post a question over there. Immediately, not the instructor, not the TA, someone from the group would answer that question very, very quickly. And what happened was only those that did not get resolved actually made it to the top for the instructor. In fact, much of the instructors in the TA's role became one of making sure that the questions were being appropriately answered by the groups. So you see what's happening is communities are learning, small groups are learning, and this is very, very pedagogically valid. Now, here's the thing. Today, edX, for instance, has 628 learning communities around it. One of the things that characterizes edX, people who give presentations on edX, if I had my slides, I'll show you. There is a green tick mark. When a question is posed and it is resolved, the people will mark it with a green check mark. So nothing gets unanswered. In a traditional classroom, that you'll never see that happen. Many people in large classrooms, we are afraid to ask questions. We are shy of asking questions. Even if we're asked, there is no way that the instructor can respond to everybody's question. Suddenly, you have distributed, decentralized function, and what is happening is that there is no question that remains unanswered. Right? And that is a very, very powerful learning mechanism. So interactivity, communities and groups learning, discussion forums, and the fact that suddenly it's a many-to-many experience, these are the potent forces which make this a very, very scalable experience for high-quality education. So these two dimensions of MOOCs I wanted to point out. I'll give you a small thing to close, and then we can think about questions later on. There are many, many interactive technologies that we are bringing in: visualization, simulations, ways in which testing can happen in a much more facile, faster way. But one of the things that we did was, for our blended learning, what MOOCs provide is the opportunity to intelligently combine online with on-site in order to provide blended learning experiences. So we at MIT have started doing our regular courses based on these online courses. In fact, when we did a survey, we find that many of the students prefer the on-site online testing to the in-classroom testing. So there was an introductory chemistry course. Many of our introductory courses are taken by lots of students. And this is the introductory chemistry course, 3091. In MIT, all the courses have numbers, as the buildings also. Anyway, so what happens is, typically in the 5th week of the freshman year, there's something called a flag. People watch how students are learning, and based on the performance, flags are given, because they'll say, no, the student needs extra help, or the student is failing, so that you can provide some advice, extra guidance to make sure that the student learns well. In a typical introductory chemistry course, there are 300 students. Typically, you'll have between 60 and 80 flags, meaning 60 or 80 students who will get some kind of a warning notice where they need extra help or something to make sure they can bring. This last semester, we did the introductory course in a joint blended fashion, where online we use the MOOC materials and MOOC resources along with the on-site thing. There are only 3 flags generated. That is how much, that's the learning. Now, these are early days, but the initial signals are that this blended form in MITx, which combines MOOC and online resources on-site, is really, really very powerful. There are significant learning gains and learning improvements. With that, I will stop my comments. I want to point out is what this really is representing is the fact that we can innovate, come up with innovative solutions to address large-scale enrollment problems, large-scale educational access problems in very, very interesting ways. So MOOCs are not just about scaling the traditional method, but about creating innovative practices so that you can really address educational needs for diverse sectors in a very, very effective and efficient way. Thank you.